The moment Karen tried to stuff my 83-year-old grandma into a rolling trash bin screaming something about unauthorized porch occupancy was the moment I realized two things. One, this HOA wasn't just power drunk, it was homicidally deranged, and two, Grandma didn't need saving, she needed a minute to stretch, because what Karen didn't know, what nobody knew, was that the tiny woman she tried to manhandle like a bag of long clippings held a third-degree black belt and showed in karate, and had once put 3 muggers in the hospital with nothing but a purse and a peppermint. Now, rewind, let me tell you how we got here. When I moved into Oak Meadow Estates, I thought I was doing the right thing after Grandpa passed. Grandma was alone in that creaky old farmhouse 3 counties over, too proud to admit she needed help, but too stubborn to accept any. So I sold my apartment in the city, cashed out a few investments, and bought us a modest little rancher in what the realtor called a quiet, community-minded neighborhood with traditional values. I should have known what that meant. The grass was suspiciously perfect, mailboxes were the same shade of taupe, driveways looked vacuumed, and the welcome packet included a laminated 3-ring binder titled Community Compliance Handbook 2021 edition, revised for maximum harmony. But I didn't care, I just wanted Grandma safe. She'd spent her whole life serving others, raising 2 kids alone, working 3 jobs, outliving 2 husbands, and an attempted mugger in 1986, and it was her turn to be looked after. What I hadn't realized was that Oak Meadow Estates wasn't a neighborhood, it was a regime. The moment we unloaded our moving truck, I caught the first scent of sulfur and cheap perfume. Karen, she approached with a clipboard, a brittle smile, and a cardigan that matched her dog's leash. "Welcome to Oak Meadow Estates," she said like she was delivering a verdict. "I'm Karen Priso, president. We pride ourselves on order here." Her eyes flicked over the mismatched boxes, the rusting smoker we'd borrowed from Uncle Ralph, and the crocheted doily poking out from Grandma's open suitcase. She didn't say anything else, just jotted something down and walked off like a surveyor marking a condemned lot. That was Monday. By Tuesday morning, there was a yellow notice on our mailbox stating it violated aesthetic congruency standards by being eggplant purple with weathered brass accents. It had been Grandma's favorite color since 1954, and she'd painted it herself with leftover barn paint and an old toothbrush. "Looks regal to me," she said, squinting at the letter. "What do they mean, congruency? It's a mailbox, not a casket." I called the HOA to inquire and was met with what I would come to recognize as Karen's customer service voice, clipped, passive-aggressive, and glazed and saccharine. "Your mailbox simply doesn't reflect the cohesive palette of the neighborhood, but not to worry, we've pre-selected an approved replacement model. It's beige." The next day, our garden gnomes vanished. Not all of them, just the ones facing the street. Sir Snugglebeard, Knight of the Garden Bed, was beheaded. Our welcome-ish doormat was flipped upside down, and someone had neatly snipped the heads off Grandma's marigolds. There was no proof, of course, no witnesses, no security footage, but that morning I spotted Karen walking her dog in our direction, phone out, tapping something into a little HOA app that tracked compliance. Her dog paused to pee on our recycling bin. "He only goes on houses with violations," she said sweetly before crossing back to the sidewalk. Grandma wasn't rattled, not yet. She just brewed 2 mugs of Earl Grey, set them out on the porch, and said, "Some people get their serotonin from controlling others. I get mine from watching squirrels throw walnuts at each other." But that peace wouldn't last. By Friday, we'd received a formal citation for excessive grandparenting filed under Code 2.17, Public Nuisance Activity, Non-Commercial. The description was surreal: repeated social congregation involving elderly individuals on visible porches may create visual or auditory disturbances and may conflict with neighborhood tranquility. It referred specifically to Grandma's habit of drinking tea at dawn on our rocking bench, sometimes joined by Mrs. Elkins from down the street, or heaven forbid, our mailman Roy, who liked her banana bread. And stories about the 60s. Karen labeled these as gatherings and unsanctioned meetings. But by the following week, the citations got bolder. We were fined $85 for having non-regulation rocking chairs that creaked at volumes inconsistent with community serenity standards. Another 50 appeared for scent-related disturbances, referring to the smell of Grandma's biscuits wafting beyond our property line. "I'm not kidding." Community member complaints of persistent baked good odors. She read it aloud 3 times, then pinned it on the fridge like a trophy. "Will frame that," she said. "First time someone's tried to arrest me for being Southern. It would have been funny if it stopped there, but it didn't." HOA enforcers, we called them, the Beige Patrol, began appearing on our lawn in the early mornings, taking photos with clipboards, whispering to each other like secret agents conducting a raid on a pie cartel. Once I caught one crouched behind our rose bushes filming Grandma through the window while she knitted. I confronted him, and he mumbled something about code documentation and visual evidence for auditory events. Karen, when I reported it, said, "Our compliance team has the right to verify environmental consistency and behavioral regularity. We've had reports of your grandmother whistling Grandma, of course, had never whistled in her life. She had a gap in her front teeth she never bothered to fix, claimed it gave her character, but facts didn't matter to the HOA. Only rules, arbitrary made-up rules designed to control, to bully, to drain the spirit of anything colorful or human. Grandma started keeping her blinds closed, not because she was scared, but because she knew they were watching. Let them try something, she said one morning, her teacup steady as a surgeon's hand. But if they bring that clipboard near my Bionas again, I'm going to show them what a lifetime of Tai Chi and mutual disrespect can do to a spine. I tried to file formal appeals. I wrote emails. I showed up to board meetings, but Karen always had an excuse, always smiled like a python digesting a hamster. The other board members nodded along like barnacles attached to a ship they couldn't steer. We appreciate your input, they'd say, but you must understand, community cohesion depends on compliance. When I asked what exactly Grandma had done wrong, they cited unapproved porch activity and suspected non-permitted communal engagement. One day a notice arrived stating Grandma's presence on the front porch for more than 3 hours per day constituted static trespassing, a term we later learned Karen invented. Let's build her a booth, I joked, charge rent to sit on her own steps. But Grandma wasn't joking anymore. I saw the shift. She stopped laughing. She stopped wearing her favorite sunflower house coat. She started sitting farther back on the porch, tea in hand, eyes narrowed, silent, watching, calculating, waiting. This isn't about rules anymore, she said one evening as we sipped tea under the porch light. This is about being old and inconvenient, about reminding people that life doesn't always look like a real estate brochure. I nodded. She was right. And that's when it began, the pivot, the part where Grandma stopped playing defense. But that's the next chapter, because before she started fighting back, they had to push her one step too far. They had to cross the line, and let me tell you, it came in the form of a trash bin with wheels and one very, very bad decision. It started with the weeds, not real ones, but the kind that sprouted overnight in perfect rows right under Grandma's hydrangeas. One morning they weren't there, and the next they were lined up like they'd been summoned by someone with a grudge, and a bag of fast-sprouting crabgrass seed. Grandma noticed first. These ain't mine, she said, crouching down with her pruning shears. I fought more weeds than I fought men, and that's saying something. These didn't grow, these were planted. We pulled up a handful and found little plastic tags on the roots, nursery tags. Someone had literally bought and planted invasive weeds just to get us written up by the HOA. That same afternoon, we got another violation notice, invasive species, immediate removal required, $125 fine pending inspection. Karen's signature was at the bottom with her usual loopy K, as if that softened the blow of blatant harassment. It didn't. What followed was like something out of a psychological warfare manual. A series of anonymous complaints started showing up in the HOA complaint box. Unsightly aging fixtures on porch, unlicensed rocking motion during daytime hours, possible elder squatting. We laughed at first until we realized they were dead serious. The notices came daily. Karen began circling our property in her SUV, slowing down just enough for her phone camera to catch every angle of our sighting. One night around 2 a.m. I saw a flash through the blinds. I got up, peeked through the curtain, and caught one of the HOA enforcers, probably Chad or Blake, with the clipboard, as Grandma called him, snapping infrared photos of our front steps. Hope you got my good side, Grandma muttered, not even looking up from her crochet hook. Better get deliver spots while they're fresh. The next week, contractors showed up unannounced. No notice, no permits, just 3 men with matching polo shirts that said Elder Safe Inspections and a clipboard with Karen's letterhead. We're here for a safety audit, said the tallest one, a guy with a buzz cut and the nervous energy of a man who's never been punched by an octogenarian. Oh, request. We've had complaints about mobility hazards and potential fall zones. Fall zones? Grandma asked, stepping out onto the porch in her slippers and a bathrobe that said, not dead yet on the back. What, you think the rocking chair is going to buck me off like a wild bronco? They tried to enter the house. I told them no. They said they had the authority. I told them to show me a warrant. One of them said, we don't need one, ma'am. HOA bylaws supersede. That's when Grandma pulled out her reading glasses, flipped open her binder of copied legal codes, and quoted 2 county statutes and a state-level precedent that made the man take an actual step back. If you touch that door handle, she said, you better be able to pronounce the word trespassing in front of a judge with all your teeth still. And they left. But it didn't end. It got worse. Karen started coming around under the guise of concern. We're just worried, she'd say with that weaponized tone of white suburban pity. She's on the porch so much. Is she cognitively okay? She began knocking on neighbors' doors, whispering stories about Grandma talking to herself. She was talking to the cat, or forgetting where she was. She wasn't, or leaving tea out too long and attracting bugs. That part might have been true, but still. One evening I came home to find an official-looking sign hammered into our lawn: senior monitoring zone under consideration for assisted oversight program. Grandma was sitting beside It's sipping tea if they put a camera on me. I'm knitting at a hat, she said. Then came the final straw. It was a Thursday morning. I just left for the store. Grandma was on the porch with her crossword and a scone when Karen showed up this time with backup 2 men in beige uniforms, an oversized city trash bin with wheels, and a printed violation notice in a plastic sleeve. Karen marched up the steps like she owned the ground. This area, she said, waving her clipboard like it was the word of God, is not zoned for prolonged personal use. Your grandmother is in direct violation of occupancy protocol and porch usage standards, and I'm afraid we've had no choice but to enforce removal. Removal of what? I asked, stepping out of the car because I turned around after forgetting my wallet. Of her, Karen said, pointing at Grandma like she was a rotten tree limb. She's unregistered, unauthorized, and excessively sedentary. It's unsightly. It lowers curb appeal. One of the men stepped forward with the bin. It had a plastic liner inside and a yellow flag that read "Civic Waste will transport her gently," Karen said, as if she was talking about relocating a feral cat. I dropped my groceries. The apple juice burst open on the pavement. Don't, I said, hands out, stepping between them. Don't even think. But I didn't have to. Grandma stood up. No cane, no wobble, she set her teacup down like it was fine china. Then she walked down those porch steps with the grace of someone half her age, rolled up her sleeves, and said in a voice that turned my blood to ice, "Try it." Karen scoffed. "Ma'am, don't be ridiculous." And that's when it happened. In one motion, Grandma stepped forward, spun on the ball of her foot, and planted a palm heel strike straight into Karen's sternum. Karen's clipboard went flying. Her feet left the ground. She hit the edge of the flower bed with a dull thud and a spray of petunias. The 2 men froze. One of them took a step forward. Grandma just looked at him, and whatever he saw made him step right back. Karen, groaning, tried to sit up. She had a daisy stuck in her hair. "You assaulted me," she wheezed. "You're going to jail, you old siren." Someone had called the cops, maybe a neighbor, maybe the guy who wet himself and fled into the neighbor's yard. A cruiser pulled up, lights flashing, 2 officers stepping out. One of them, Officer Ramirez, took one look at the scene and sighed. "Oh no," he muttered, seeing Karen in the trash bin. Then he looked at Grandma and smiled. "Miss Joni," he said, "you okay?" Grandma nodded. "She tried to throw me out with the compost." The other officer, white guy, buzzcut, frowned. "You know her?" Ramirez grinned. "She taught me everything I know about pressure points. Ran a women's self-defense program for 10 years. Took down 2 purse snatchers in 2003 with a cane and a can of bug spray. Ladies, a legend." The buzzcut officer blinked. "She what, third-degree black belt?" And Shakan, Ramirez added, "Trained with the same guy who taught my cousin on SWAT. We used to call her the Silver Shuriken." Karen was still wheezing in the dirt. "She hit me. She's dangerous. Arrest her." Ramirez crouched beside her. "Ma'am, are you injured?" "Yes," she shrieked. "She launched me like a missile." "Well, we'll get you checked out," he said, standing. "But so far it sounds like attempted unlawful restraint, elder harassment, and illegal impersonation of a municipal official." Plus, he added, holding up the violation. "Notice this paper here says you're from the Neighborhood Behavioral Oversight Committee. That's not a real thing." Karen's eyes widened. "It could be. We were just forming it." "Well," Ramirez said, folding the paper in half, "maybe next time try not to stuff an old lady into a trash can while you're doing it." They helped Karen to her feet and led her to the cruiser. One of the contractors asked, "Are we still getting paid?" Grandma looked at him. He left. Ramirez took our statement, shook Grandma's hand, and said, "You need anything, you let me know." "I'm fine," she said. "Just wish I hadn't spilled my tea." And as Karen was driven away, petunia petals still stuck to her jacket, Grandma sat back down in her rocking chair, picked up her crossword, and said, "You know, I think I just found a 15-letter word for with a clipboard." I said nothing, just brought her a fresh cup. She'd earned it the morning after Karen took a petunia-powered flight into our front garden. Grandma brewed her strongest black tea, laced it with a spring rick of lemon balm, and sat down at the kitchen table like a general preparing for war. She didn't say a word for the first hour, just sipped her tea, flipped through a battered leather notebook, and laid out pages like blueprints across the table. I was still recovering from the shock of what had happened. To strike the cops, the petal-covered arrest, but Grandma was calm, focused, like she'd been waiting for this moment for years. "All right," she said, finally tapping a photo stapled to a crinkled manila folder. "That's your cue." I leaned over and stared down at a grainy picture of Karen, arms crossed, standing next to a man in a polo shirt with a logo that read Greenvale Property Solutions. Behind them, a freshly laid bed of mulch and a brand new HOA sign gleamed like a trophy that was supposed to be an all-volunteer project. Grandma said, flipping the page to show the budget request submitted to the board. Zero-cost, community-led, but they brought in a contractor. He just happens to be Karen's cousin, doing business under a shell company. He registered 6 months ago in another county, got paid 14850 from discretionary maintenance funds. I blinked. "How do you know all this?" She smiled, that sly cat who swallowed the sheriff's smile. "Because I used to do this for a living." Then she reached into her knitting basket and pulled out an embossed ID badge. I'd Never seen before. State of Georgia Department of Regulatory Investigations Certified Private Investigator Level 3. You were a PI, I said, mouth halfway to the floor. Retired, she said, smoothing the badge like it was a memory she wasn't quite done with, but the license never really leaves you. And once you see corruption once, you can't help but smell it again. Karen Ryer. The moment she told me my rocking chair was a security risk, she turned her binder around and began showing me what she'd compiled since the day we moved, in photographs of board meetings held in secret, invoices without tax IDs, bank transactions traced through check numbers, and even a few blurry screenshots of HOA emails she'd intercepted. Nothing criminal there, just, well, nothing legal either. She had statements from 3 different neighbors, each who'd been cited for lawn-related violations within a week of refusing to vote for Karen's re-election. One of them, a retired Army colonel named Hank, had his fence painted neon orange by vandals who were later seen being led out of a board member's van. Then there was the sprinkler system that accidentally broke and flooded a yard that refused to remove their Biden sign. Grandma had it all in labeled folders with receipts. I've got files going back 14 months, she said, and I think it's time we made it official. I nodded slowly, still trying to reconcile my biscuit-baking, bird-feeding grandmother with the woman who just laid out a prosecutable corruption case while wearing slippers shaped like rabbits. I can help digitize it, I said. My whole job is digital forensics, encryption, metadata, tracking, timeline construction. She raised an eyebrow. You're telling me this now? Well, you never told me you were one palm strike away from being on the FBI's watch list. We spent the next 3 days building a fortress of evidence. Grandma dictated every timeline while I scanned, sorted, and coded every receipt, every image, every testimonial. I built a file tree that would make a federal prosecutor weep with joy. Every document was tagged, cross-referenced, and backed up 3 times, once on a thumb drive, once on a secure cloud account, and once hidden under the 3rd loose floorboard in the laundry room by 2 on public.org, wrapped and vacuum-sealed plastic like a doomsday seed vault. And while we worked, the neighborhood simmered. Karen was temporarily suspended from her position pending investigation, but the rest of the board circled the wagons. They sent out letters claiming Grandma had used excessive force, that she posed a physical threat to community cohesion, that she'd installed a monitored surveillance grid. Translation: her porch camera. The letters were meant to scare us. Instead, they scared our neighbors into standing beside us. Hank, the colonel, brought over his own folder of HOA receipts, including one showing his voluntary fee for a sidewalk repaving project that never actually happened. Karen told me it was for future asphalt quality assurance, he said, still holding the canceled check. But my wife told me that's not a thing. Mrs. Not Broth Elkins, who used to teach high school civics and now played bridge on Thursdays, had a different kind of receipt, photocopies of minutes from HOA meetings that were never published. She'd taken them while volunteering as note-taker 2 years prior. Those minutes included something particularly juicy: approval for an off-ledger budget reassignment tied to property beautification that was rubber-stamped by Karen and one other person. That second signature belonged to HOA Vice President Tyler Kin, a man who until now had said absolutely nothing. We never expected Tyler to crack. He was young, nervous, always hiding behind Karen at meetings like a kid afraid of losing recess. But one night he showed up at our door holding a flash drive in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. I can't keep lying, he said. I didn't know how far it went until they tried to dispose of your grandma. Like trash, Grandma said dryly. Let the record reflect. Tyler nodded. He looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. She's been forging internal votes, he said, making up compliance reports, inflating vendor invoices. I thought we were just fast-tracking maintenance work, but when I saw the contractor list, I realized she was billing us for jobs that never happened, and the kicker, her cousin's shell company got paid for lawn treatments on empty lots. Empty lots, man, there's no grass. The flash drive he handed us had emails, dozens of them. Karen's email to the treasurer: don't report that expense yet. I'll backdate the minutes after the vote passes. Another to the contractor: use the 2022 invoice as a template. I'll handle the line items. And the most damning, a PDF labeled donation plan outlined ducks detailing how HOA funds could be redistributed into a private community initiative fund. I know your rights. Familiarize yourself with local laws and HOA regulations. Not all rules are enforceable, and some may be illegal or overreaching. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Document everything. Keep detailed records of all communications, notices, violations, and interactions with your HOA or authorities. Photos, emails, and written notes can build a strong case if you need to challenge unfair treatment. Build community support. Connect with neighbors who might be experiencing similar issues. There's strength in numbers, and a united community can push back more effectively against abuses of power. Stay calm but firm. Harassment and bullying tactics are designed to intimidate. Like grandma, stay composed, assert your boundaries clearly, and respond with dignity and confidence. Seek legal advice if needed. If things escalate, don't hesitate to consult a lawyer who understands HOA laws. Sometimes, just knowing you have professional support can make a big difference. Don't underestimate the power of experience. Older generations or anyone with a rich life history often carry wisdom and skills that are invaluable in difficult situations. Respect that and learn from it.